Hello, my friends, and welcome to You Normal. I am sure that you have experienced more than once in your life the feeling of like, this just doesn't feel right. Yet the world tells you that it's totally normal. This is the place that we get to push the envelope in redefining what normal actually is. And I bring guests in to help explore how we can do that in a multitude of different ways. And today's guest is Saci McDonald. She is, I will call her, I will call you Saci. I don't want to act like you're not here. I will call you a breathwork guru, in my opinion. But I mean, I know that you probably say that's silly because we're all gurus since we've been breathing since we were born. But Saci does breath work. She does energy kinesiology. She has a whole tool, a basket full of tools that she shares with the world. But today we are going to be talking about the healing power of our breath. So thank you and welcome, Saci.
Well, thank you so much, Robina. And you're right. I certainly would not call myself a breathwork guru because, as you said, the very, very first thing that we do when we get here on planet Earth is we begin to breathe. So it is the most normal thing that we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, before we get going on this, I'm going to read a poem to everybody, a piece of it, something that you sent me regarding breath work, breathing, the breath. And then I'm going to give just a few moments for you to share whatever it is that you want to share with the people who are either listening live and or the people who listen after the fact. Fun facts about breath. It doesn't care about the weather. It doesn't ruminate in the past. It has no opinion. It doesn't judge you or anyone else because it's pure. It doesn't need to be right. It has no shame. It doesn't have a favorite color. It has no hate because it's pure. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't lack confidence. It doesn't care how you look. It doesn't have a sexual preference because it's pure. It doesn't dream of the future. It's not self-righteous. It doesn't lack integrity. It has no self-confusion because it's pure. And there's so much more to this, but really for me in my experience, like this, I have found this to be true, and I found this truth within myself. So following on that, Saci, just share with everybody what you might want to, maybe about that basket of tools, or just even what brought you to breathwork.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to tell you what brought me to breathwork. But before I do that, I just want to sort of swing back to the poem. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that as Robina was reading that, I know that you can all relate to it. You can all relate to it, and you all know what does do the judging, and you all know what does have an opinion, and that's our minds. Mm-hmm. Our minds are so strong, and they're really quite brilliant. And yet sometimes they're misplaced. I would call it sort of misplaced, and that they're trying to do things that they're not best apt at doing. They're really good at studying. They're really good at getting you from A to B. But in hearts of the matter, or, you know, in certain areas, your breath or your breath is a better tool than your mind. And so it's just sort of comparing the mind with the breath. The breath was, as I say, the breath will always keep you safe. And our minds don't necessarily always keep us safe. They can sometimes get us into trouble, right? So going back to what I just wanted to mention that about the poem that I wrote. But going back to how I landed up doing breath work is, it wasn't real. It was, I showed up at a workshop. It was in October 1989. And part of the workshop, on the Saturday evening, there was this thing that we were going to do. And it was called, actually, let me tell you, it was called rebirthing, is what it was called. I didn't know what it was, but I was there for just to have my experience fully, and I had my experience fully. And literally from that moment on, in October, the second weekend in October of 1989, my life has been different because of the breath work. And back then it was called breath work. I mean, it was called rebirthing. And Jim Leonard and Phil Lout and Sandra Ray, they were very much the pioneers of what they called rebirthing. And now they don't call it that anymore. They call it, I think they call it conscious breathing. I think it's also known as vibration. My friend Christian and I, we studied together with our teacher Maya, who introduced us to the breath work. And he calls it soulful breath work. There's other ones called clarity breath. It was lots of different, and then there's also holotropic breath work. So there's many, many different kinds of breath work. And yet, in the end of the day, who's right? There is nobody who is right. Do you understand? It's like there's lots of different paths that you can take in terms of breath work, lots of different techniques in terms of breath work. But the ones that I have sort of spoken about right now tend to be the ones, those are the ones that are doing this similar, you could call it similar. Everybody has their own little idea of it, but similar in that the way that we're doing this, and it is ultimately, it's a breath work. I call it a breath work meditation. It is a breath work meditation, right? And what's different about this breath work, or unique about this breath work, there's no pause between our inhale and our exhale. And that's what makes it, that's what we're doing, making sure that we have no pause between the inhale and the exhale. Again, what I'm saying is a lot of words. Let me tell you, as Robina knows so well, it is so natural, it is so normal, right? I don't hear you, Robina. You're on mute.
Thank you. Well, and like you said, I always go back to my breath will always keep me safe, right? And the one thing that is interesting though is like even when I started doing this and we're doing this continual breathing and I've been breathing all my life, I remember in the beginning I was like, oh, I'm really excited to go to breath work, but oh, I really don't want to like because it's just like, but I think it's just that ingrained right response like, oh, we're doing something that's outside of the norm. And for me personally, it created this awareness of how shallow I breathe or how much I was holding my breath. And now that I've been doing it for, I don't know, it's a year plus or something, right? I've lost track. It is now a part of just that conversation that I have with myself. And I just breathe, Robina, just breathe. And once I do, it calms my system down.
Yes.
It really has been powerful. Going back to what you said, Sashi, though, is there is, I don't think, any right answer. Like you walk into Michael's, you could buy all different types of paint. It's just finding that one style that resonates with you. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. There is no, and I have heard it said every now and again, somebody will say, oh, I've been breathing wrong. And I just sort of think, well, if you were breathing wrong, you'd be dead. So just saying. So I don't really like the wrong in it. It's just like, oh, there could be a more efficient way to breathe, or there could be, so making it wrong never feels very good to me because it's just not true. It's not true. Again, there's not a wrong in any of it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that comment, I've been doing it wrong, or even after, I remember in the beginning, I was like, is this normal? Right? Is this normal? Whatever is happening in here, whatever's happened with me, is that normal? But it becomes this, I feel like, again, why we're here having this conversation, that becomes part of the norm where we start to question our own existence, if you will. Like if we're questioning if we're breathing right, and that's why I feel like there's that power in showing up for this work, right? Is to I'll say for me personally, I can't say for other people, but to find myself back, to get back to what really it feels like to be in my body, to trust that and allow myself to just be comfortable there versus doing things that are distracting me from being present in my own body.
Yeah. And you know what, Robina, it's interesting that you say that because I hear it so often. And I think we all know that experience of being at home, like cozy, warm in bed, or like maybe we're cozy with a hot water bottle, or just everything. We're really cozy, right? And we're comfortable. And I feel like what the breath work does, it literally brings us home to the depths of ourselves. It's like, it's a coming home to the depths of yourself. And so the question is, well, how do you do that? I've been breathing all my life. Like, how do you do that? Right? But again, breathing in this manner, as I say, it's a certain meditation practice. And it's also very much a healing practice. You know, what is happening when we do this practice, and I should maybe tell a little bit more about the practice in terms of, well, what is it? How long does it take? Does it take us 2 minutes? No, it doesn't. It takes about an hour. It's about an hour practice. Maybe I should say that. Because it's literally a cycle. It's like once we start the breath doing that, you know, the conscious, continuous, connected breath, there's no pause between the inhale and the exhale. It's a natural cycle that happens in the body that is about an hour long. And so when that cycle gets going and you're doing the breath in that manner, it's an incredible force for healing within the body. And if anybody can relate to a time in their life when they have wanted to express something and they've just felt, I'm not safe in this space, or I'm not safe with these people to say what I think or say what I feel. I'm just going to not say anything and swallow it. And you're just not going to say it.
Yeah.
Or perhaps you felt, you know, threatened in some way and you want to not say it, you want to swallow it. Or if you've lived through some experiences that were scary, and say for example you were in a car accident or you witnessed a car accident, and your body afterwards was shaking and feeling kind of traumatized from the experience. I'm just giving these as examples.
Yeah.
What happens is your body holds on to that information. It just holds on to it, and it gets into literally the muscles and the tissues of your body, and it just sort of sits there. And then you come to do the breath work, as you know, Robina.
Yeah.
And you lie down and you're breathing in this conscious, connected breath. And what happens is your magical, mystical breath will actually find those experiences that I talked about. It will find those stuck areas in your body, those areas that have been suppressed, that you suppress, those experiences. And it will clear them out. Exactly how it does it, I don't fully understand that. And I know that in this day and age, there is a lot of science that is teaching us about the breath and teaching us what a healing modality it truly is. And there is, as I say, there's a lot of science about it these days. But again, when I started 30 plus years ago, it was more about just having the experience and noticing afterwards how incredibly different after the experience of the breath, right? Something changed in my system, something changed in my body, something changed in my psyche. And what is especially, you know, when I talk about Robina as it being silent as women, okay, you know, we like to chat, we like to talk, we like to get into it, we've got a lot to say, we've got a lot to process, and let's get down and dirty and do this processing. The truth is, when you do the breath work, you don't say a word.
Yeah.
You don't need to. It will happen in you. It will happen as you, which ultimately is sort of a relief to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I know that I shared this with you that in the work that I've done with you, because there's a few ways that you work with people. And so I've been lucky enough to experience them, say yes to myself too. I'm going to heal my body. But yeah, it's this, how does this even work? How am I healing myself? I know that it's happening though. I can feel it. You know, as I stayed with it, it opened up new things for me. And what the thought that came to my mind, Saci, because I was, what difference does it make if I were just to lay there for an hour and breathe versus the breathing that we do, right? This continuous breathing. And it makes me think about when you're in there for that first half hour to really make sure that we stay awake and we're engaged and we're getting all the air in our system. As you always say, is like, think about laughing, right? Like it's kind of like laughing. And when you were sharing that, I was like, yeah, laughing is like continuous. Could you imagine if, like, I was saying to myself, wow, Robina, can you imagine if you laughed for an hour straight?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in that space where you're laughing, but you did it for an hour, how
Mm-hmm.
amazing would you feel at the end of that hour?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's kind of like at the end of breath work, where I just, for me personally, and there are other times where it's like an emotional experience and a lot comes up, but at the end, I just feel so much more expanded and, like that high vibrational, I'm just in a happier place with myself and who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
how
that,
I experience the world
that feeling
around
of
me as
coming
well.
home. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, and how I experience the world around me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That sense of coming home. That sense of coming home. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, we were kind of talking about beforehand that in the same way is, I feel like, and I don't know how you want to answer this, of course, is your own, but for me, it is that sense of coming home, but being comfortable with it and it's opened the door for me to explore even more what it's like just to have a relationship with myself, with my body, and to be in a place where I feel okay with feeling uncomfortable. Like, like you were saying, those moments where we're silent. And I know that I did that a lot, where I would just stuff it down. I wouldn't say anything. I'd just walk away and I'd be seething mad or hurt, all these emotions. And then it's just stuffed in my body. Right. And then how can I distract myself from not feeling this discomfort that I didn't get to say something and have my voice heard and all of that. And now I feel like by doing this, it is made that not so uncomfortable, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, you've worked with a lot of people. Obviously, I think back to what I've done since October of '89, and I don't know if I stayed with anything as much as you have with this, but you've worked with a lot of people. I'm sure the experience is different for everybody, right? What healing they find in it.
The experience is different for everybody. There can be some general experiences, but the truth is, thank you for saying that, because we're all unique. And I'm sort of hesitant in the beginning to share my experiences with people because I don't want them to go, oh, but I didn't have that experience. It's like, well, yeah, because you're not me and I'm not you. You're going to have your experience. But then when somebody's been doing breath work for a good long while, then it's like, I want to hear all about it. I was like, oh yeah, and this and then that, because every single one is different. Every single one is different. And Robina, this is something that you said to me when we weren't on air. You said, really what I do in my work, this is what you said, Robina, is reflecting people's power back to them. And I would say this is exactly what is happening, is like, it is reflecting people's power back to them and having them realizing how powerful they truly are. How incredibly powerful they truly are. With a healing tool that is up your nose, right? Is in your lungs. It is what we do every day, all day long. And yet, we like to go out there to try to get something to try to help fix us. It was like, well, go to your breath because it's so incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
And the other thing that has come up is that sometimes, I gave a few examples, and sometimes people may be thinking, yeah, but in my life, I've had certain traumas that I am not about to go back there. I am not about to go back and open that Pandora's box. And I get it. I totally get it. And as Robina knows so well, what is true about the breath work, and really the only way I could even do the breath work, whether it is online or whether it is in person, is the breath will never, never, never take you to a place that you're not safe. It just won't do it. So whatever your breath brings up within a session, you can handle it. How do I know that? I know that from all these years of experience personally and from facilitating breath work, as I say, in person and virtually. It just, every single time, your breath will keep you safe.
Yeah.
That's
well, Yeah, that's so true. And I will even say for me, when I go into it, sometimes I don't even know what's going to show up. But at the end, I feel so much better because of it, right? And I don't, like you were saying, is I don't want to sit there and say, well, this was my experience, because it will be different for everybody. And there is no comparison to it. But that release that happens, and even around things that I have no idea what it is. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because like you were saying earlier in the beginning, the mind has a lot of chit chat, right?
Mhm.
And if I were just to sit for an hour and breathe, I wouldn't really be just laying there breathing. My brain would be constantly having a conversation about, oh, you should do this and you could do that, or you want to heal that, then you should, versus just allowing my body to have more of a say in healing itself, right? Because my brain wants to figure it all out, whereas the
Yeah,
body's like, hey, I got this. Like, I know what's going on. I know where it's at.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. Well, and that's the human condition that we have. I'm like, that's what I can totally relate to what you're, and everybody who's listening to this right now will totally relate. No, my mind wants to know, my mind wants to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's really good up to a certain point. But the truth is, if the mind could do all that, then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
It's where the mind can't do it. It's okay, because there is something else that can. Your
Yeah.
breath truly can. Right. And so again, I think you asked the question, I can't even remember, but I think you said something like, well, what if I just lay down and just breathe normally? Well, it's, of course you can lie down and breathe normally, like you can go to sleep or whatever, but you're not, it's like, again, when I call it a breathwork meditation, you're breathing in a very specific manner in order to sort of create the environment to cause to cause your breath to literally go out and search out all the blockages or where all the suppressed areas are in your body, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so people do ask me, can I do this by myself? And my answer is yes, you can do it by yourself. It's better that you get trained so you know what you're doing, because if you don't know what you're doing, you won't necessarily be that successful, right? There's definitely a need to have the sense of safety in it, because it's not, as how many times have I said it, Robina? I've said it, I can't even tell you how many times I've said it, but really it's like, normally you're in the driver's seat and you're off someplace and you're driving, right? And your mind knows where you're going from home to work or whatever, and your mind is like, off you go. But when you do the breath work, the difference is like, you're putting your mind, it's going to be present, but you're putting it in your passenger seat next door to you, or maybe even put it in the back of the car. That might be even better, so it doesn't have as much of an opinion. And yet it's looking out, it's aware, it knows what's going on, while your breath is sitting in the driver's seat. You're allowing your breath to sit in the driver's seat, right? And so the mind is still present. It is still very present, but it doesn't, like I like to say, it's like it's on vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, or on holiday, as I would say on holiday. So it's aware and it sees what's going on, but it doesn't have to change anything. It doesn't have to fix anything. It doesn't have to do anything. It is just aware. Just like you're on holiday, you don't have to do any work when you're on holiday. You just get to you just watch and have a good time.
Yeah.
Your mind, and as you read in that poem in the beginning, sometimes your mind is like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And then sometimes it's like, I'm really hating this.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I don't really care. I don't really care if you think, oh, wow. Or if
Yeah.
you're hitting it, who cares? Your
Yeah.
breath is driving. Your
Well,
breath.
and like you said, it's that the meditative practice of it. That's what I call it. Like now I'm like, my meditative practice,
Mm-hmm.
because I show up and someone is guiding me through.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that is, for me personally, I need that interaction, that accountability. If I want to go meditate by myself, I'm lucky if I last 2 minutes. My squirrel brain is on the go and it wants me to be up and doing something, and to just sit somewhere for an hour would be a huge challenge to me. But this somehow I'm able to do.
So
Um,
Robina,
yeah.
how is your mind at the end of a breathwork circle? How does your mind feel at the end of a breathwork circle? You've described it beautifully at the beginning. How does it feel at the end?
Well, it's kind of just like your poem, right? It's so It's quiet.
It's quiet.
It's calm. It's
Calm.
clear.
Clear.
And I feel like there's so much magic and goodness and wonderfulness that's in my mind, but I have that little chatty Kathy going on most of the time who's in the way. So after breath work, she's just zen. She's chill. Like when my dog comes in after breath work and she's totally zapped for the rest of the day, she's like, oh, that's how my little chatty Kathy is.
Yeah.
So then I can go and I feel like when I paint, when I write afterwards, when I'm just laying there, it is completely different. I'm just so at peace with myself.
Yeah.
And I can be content just to lie there and do nothing.
Yeah.
But when I get up and do something, I'm just so in the moment of what I'm creating.
Yeah.
And I'm not distracted by all this conversation in my head. Sorry, it's a long answer, but
no, it's, and you know what? Yes, that's it. And you did it. You know, it's like with the breath work, it's your breath. I didn't do that for you. I didn't do it. I'm holding space. It's your practice. You know, it's about empowering you, right? It's all about empowering you. And I am holding space, but it is your practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I feel too, Robina, that space that you're talking about, that quiet space when your mind, and again, your mind is still there. It's just not doing the chatty Cathy thing. Right? It's whatever it is that we want to call it. I feel that the breath work, what happens within the breath work, not only is it able to heal our physical bodies, but somehow it's able to drop into the divine energy that we are. Or you can call it spiritual, or you can call it God, or you can call it higher self, or you can call it higher power, or you can call it, I've written a bunch down here, whatever you want, source energy, the divine, true freedom, super conscious mind, whatever it is that resonates for you, direct knowing, whatever that may be, the Holy Spirit. I feel like the breath is truly tapping into that. And at the end of a breathwork circle, that quietness, there's along with that quietness of the mind, there's something else also that feels present.
Yeah.
And again,
I agree 100% with you.
Yeah.
I know, I remember even that session where I just like, I'm going to receive and open myself up to whatever comes through and touching that place. And for me, it's like, it's almost touching the truth of who we really are, right?
Yes.
The true power of the love and the divine that exists within each of us. And like that, how we are all connected, if you will.
Yes.
And it was one of the most powerful experiences that I had during breathwork. So I 100% agree. And I think part of it is that chitty chat keeps me from the knowledge of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, yes. And yet I truly think that like after the breath work, when the mind is present yet quiet, and at the same time you're aware of that other that we just talked about, and you name whatever that may be, it's the most beautiful union between body, mind, and spirit that is happening in our bodies. We're not reading it in a book. We're not being told it by somebody else. We're actually having the lived experience of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. Nobody can give it to you.
Yeah.
Because they don't have it to give. They only have theirs, right? And you have yours and everybody has theirs. And it's within us. Nobody can do it but you.
So in that, Saci, that like nobody can give it to you. Isn't that, do you feel like, or what's your belief on this, that that's really what everybody's searching for when they're distracting themselves? They're trying to find that thing that makes them feel good, to justifies their existence in the world.
Absolutely.
All of that.
And you know, I say this, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it on air, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is that I truly, if you're a human being, you're addicted to something. There's something, because it's not really about the addiction. It's about wanting to have that sensation that we're talking about right now. That quiet, peaceful mind, and yet that experience of being present and whole in your body. And for me, let me tell you, for me, chocolate does it. It's like, oh gosh, if I want to make myself feel that way, give me some chocolate, right? Whatever it is that people, and again, when I say addiction, it's on a scale from, where's that scale? But it's like, we're literally searching for that sensation. We're searching for that feeling. It's not really about whatever it is we're addicted to. It's really about what that sensation that comes with it. It's a sensation that comes with it, with the chocolate for me,
Yeah.
For other people, it's the wine. Well, I don't like wine. So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I can agree with you, because there's a certain type of chocolate I like with a little bit of salty. And one of the things that made me really put it in perspective for me was, I remember we were in this really nice restaurant. They had amazing desserts, right? And I was like, oh, I'm so looking forward to this. And so there's this point where I'm craving it, and I keep thinking about it, and I keep visualizing and kind of bringing in, I know what this is going to taste like, that excitement, right? And then there's the point where the dessert's in front of me. And then the moment that I taste it, right? It's like that moment of bliss. Like, I am at my highest high. It's the most amazing thing. And then it's done. And then I'm back craving it, right? And it's kind of like, that's the cycle. And I think about this like, oh, how do I just sit on the tippy top of that needle to keep that feeling going forward? Because I'm either wanting it or wanting to have it again, right?
Yeah.
So,
but then in that moment when you have it, that's it. That's it. And that's basically what the breath work is going to bring you, right? It's going to bring you that in spades. And so that's another question. People say, well, how often should I do it? And it's like, well, it's sort of like exercise. You could go to the gym, once a year, and or twice a year. That's good, but it's not going to have the build-up effect. And with the breath work, having a solid practice, whatever you go out there in the world and pick up, you have an argument with your boss or something happens or whatever, and you sort of close yourself down and swallow it. I mean, hopefully you'll be able to stand up and, stand up for yourself. But if you're not standing up for yourself and you sort of close yourself down and swallow it, then you come to the breath work, you do the breath work, it's going to clear it out. And I will say that people have just absolutely told me that as a result of doing the breath work, they've noticed that they're not reacting the way they have before, or they've been able just to sort of stay calm and let whatever is happening normally something that would bother them doesn't bother them anymore.
Yeah.
Something that would push a button, that button isn't there anymore. Or that button, like for me or whatever, that button, instead of being pressed immediately, it's pressed wait 30 seconds or a minute, and then the button gets pressed, and then each time that it gets a little bit longer, right? And so that eventually certain buttons, they're just not really pressed anymore. How does that happen? I know it's sort of mystical and magical. But
there's two things in there, Saci, isn't it though? I feel like the breath work, if we are giving ourselves the space to lay down and let our bodies heal, the brain, the chitter chatter, right? The chitty chat, that's almost like a nervous system response. And so as you start to heal your nervous system, those conversations that normally would automatically kick you into your fight, flight, or freeze mode, they're maybe not as at the surface, because you're starting to retrain your nervous system that it's okay, it's safe, like this.
Absolutely.
You're not a little 2-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old that has no say in the world. You're actually an adult, and you have a lot of power in this conversation.
Exactly.
You can get up and leave.
Exactly. And it absolutely, I mean, studies are showing that breathwork absolutely heals your nervous system. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you shared an article on that, if I remember correctly. But maybe it was one I read. I don't remember. The other thing that you mentioned was gym work. And this was interesting to me because we were talking about this silent healer. I remember kind of early on when I started doing this work that I went out for a walk and all of a sudden, I'm like, I think I'm going to run. And all the tightness that I normally would feel in my body, I didn't have. And the other thing was because I had been doing it, I actually had better cardio because I had been like really using my lungs. I don't know if that's normal, if that was just me, but as we're talking about the ways that this heals and the things that it can heal for people, what are some of the ailments, so to speak, that people may come to you with that you have seen that this has helped them to heal?
Well, just talking about running, I actually have a guy, he's in the UK, and he let me know that, I don't know if it was during or after or at some point when he was running, he would have to use his inhaler because he has asthma. Oh, I think it may be exercise induced asthma or something like that. I'm not sure. But he said that after doing the breath work, he didn't need his inhaler anymore. He noticed that he just didn't need it. Like, since he'd been doing the breath work, it obviously really helped. And there's so many things that it touches on. It's such a great question. What can it heal? I would say it can heal so much, but it's sort of like, if you go to the store and you say, you're buying something, I don't know, you're buying whatever, you're buying a piece of clothing, you just go in there and say, I'm choosing this piece of clothing today, and this is what I'm going to choose today. With breath work, when you lie down to do the breath work, you can't really choose what's going to be healed that day. It's going to be whatever your breath deems that it's going to do that day. But I do remember, this is way back in 1989, 1990, around that time, that one of the gals in the group, she was diabetic, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor was he was flummoxed. He just couldn't really understand why her diabetes was better and why that she didn't need her insulin anymore. And I will say, I'm saying these things about, asthma, I'm talking about insulin, is like, I am not telling anybody like that can necessarily be healed in them. I'm just telling you experiences that people have told me, and I would never say to somebody, oh, go off your insulin, oh, go off your inhaler, nothing like that. It's like, oh, how lucky. That was an imbalance that was in their system that the breath work really, really helped.
Right.
Fantastic.
Well, and your body, if your nervous system is out of whack, then your other important systems, your circulatory system, your respiratory system, your immune system, your digestive system, if your body is in a constant state of alert, if you will, those other systems can get knocked out of whack. And it could just be your own, it can be the thoughts and all of your surroundings. So it does make sense that once you start to kind of help yourself to feel like you're safer, alter your nervous system, that those other important parts of your system would recalibrate, so to speak. And there's books out there that I've read, there's like Mind Body Code, Carolyn Mace, Anatomy of the Spirit, where it talks about how we can hold these feelings in our body, right? And then they can manifest as illness, right? Dis-ease,
absolutely,
right? Dis-ease. So I totally believe that. I've seen the transformation in my own health by showing up. And this isn't like just to say, oh, this is a huge commercial for Saci. It's more of like just the introduction of breath work to people, because I didn't even know that existed until somebody shared it with me.
Yeah. Well, and again, the whole anxiety thing, there's so much anxiety in the world these days. And, being able to come home to the breath is it's sort of unspeakably profound. I don't, it's really, it's an amazing gift that we have, and we all have it. It's not like this person has it and this other person doesn't. No, we all have it.
Right.
We all have access to it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that to me is so exciting. It's like, really? Really, right. really? I mean, yeah, really. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even when I shared this with you, I was on a run and I was running and like my body just like it ached because I haven't run in I haven't been running a lot. I used to run a lot. And in my mind, I just kept saying, "Oh man, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts." And I'm kind of like holding my breath. And I'm holding my breath when I'm running. And then I just kind of kept repeating what we say in breath work. And my breath is pure and full of wisdom. My breath will always keep me safe. My breath will always keep me safe. And as I did that, I actually started breathing during my run, and it actually the pain went away. So it's like altering that mind conversation. But one of the things that you said was like we all have a lot of anxiety right now, right? After the last 2 years and world events that are always happening, there's a lot of stuff that I think a lot of us were kind of burnt out in a way. Our systems are burnt out. I'm curious, and I just want to bring it up to share with people. Like during that time, you transitioned from in person to virtual. And so maybe people are wondering, well, how do you really do that virtually? And how has it worked? For me personally, I have to say I probably was more likely to show up because I could do it in the safety of my own room and nobody could see me, and that felt safe to me. But how has that transformed your business and what you've been able to do with it?
Yeah. So, it was March 2020, right? Yeah. I mean, if you had asked me in February or in January of 2020, and if you had said to me, Sachi, why don't you do breathwork online? I would have rolled my eyes and I would have walked away. There would have been no conversation, like none. That's ridiculous would have been my answer. and then when COVID happened, I there's other things that I do, like Pilates, teach Pilates, and my husband said, "Oh, well, you can teach Pilates online." I said, "Yeah, but I don't really want to do that. I want to do the breath work online." He goes, "Well, how are you going to do that?" I said, "I have no idea." But I just really, it was, that it's just, it was just I don't want to say it was just a feeling, but it was like, it was more a directive. It's like, you need to do this, right? And it was sort of coming from Mimi, you need to do this. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to do it. So we did it for the first time I did it. And of course, I have been facilitating breath work in person for 30 years. And all of a sudden, I'm going to do it virtually. I was like, oh my gosh. So I said to my husband, okay, Sean, you need to be on the floor next to me. And I had called there were, I think, 9 or 10 people who'd been doing a lot of breath work with me over the years. And I called them and said, would you be willing to try it? And let's do it online. Would you be willing? Because they all know me. They all know breath work. It felt safe in that regard for me. And so 9 of them said yes. I had my husband on the floor next to me, right? And then, and I did it. I don't fully remember it, really, but I do remember turning around and looking at my husband on the floor, and I thought, what is he doing there? I don't have any time to pay him any attention. I'm far too busy taking care of all these people, and what is he doing on the floor over there? It was so funny. So he pretty much got ignored in that. What was amazing was I talked to everybody, all the 9 people individually, and I asked them, what was your experience? And they all said the same thing, and that was, it felt like you were in the room with me. And that, even to this day, sort of makes me cry, because I just think that is so remarkable. They felt safe. They felt my presence. They knew that I was taking care of them, or they knew that I was not taking, but that I was holding space, right? And that they were safe enough within their breath to do this. Like, they knew their breath, that would always keep them safe, right? And so now when I have new people in, I make sure that they know that. And quite honestly, everybody who comes into the breathwork circle, they're there because somebody pretty much told them. I mean, I don't have a huge presence, on, in marketing and that sort of thing. It's pretty much word of mouth. And what's so really, Robina, I mean, that's initially how I met you. Melissa told you about the breath work, and you showed up. And literally, I have people, I mean, maybe not all over the world, but certainly like in Austria, in Germany, in Scotland, in England, in the Netherlands. Let me not forget the Netherlands. There's a gal there. She comes in a lot. and all over the United States. There was somebody who came in from Belize, and we even had North Africa one time, and Australia. So wow, wow, wow. And I would not want to relive the pandemic, but I think everybody has had some silver linings within their, hopefully they've had some silver linings within the pandemic. I mean, you know, as terrible as the time has been.
Yeah.
So that was a rather long answer to your question. So and at the same time, I'm really yearning to be back in person. I still have not done any in person. But I maybe sometime this summer, maybe if things feel like they open up a little bit more, I'm really yearning to do it in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that part of me that's like, I want to be in person, but then it's like, I think I'm more selective about who I hang out with now of what I want to be in person, which is good, right? We're more intentional with our designs. But
and do you remember the first time that you did the breath work? Do you remember like
I remember my first time, and I had no idea what I was walking into, which I liked. I always try to approach it this way. I don't want too much information because I don't want my head to get in the way, right? I don't want to have this expectation. It was super powerful, a super powerful experience. I will say that. So, but again, I think because I was in the safety of my own bedroom, it allowed for me to go to that place of just complete, vulnerability, if you will, right?
Yes.
If you're in a room and you're breathing and your eyes are covered, and someone's guiding you, it can feel very vulnerable. So it made it easier for me. And that's why I'm always telling people about it. You should try this out.
Yeah.
Briefly, before we get too off, is you do offer other things, and as far as helping people heal, and I've read your newsletter, so I don't want to get sidetracked by it, but I do want to mention two things. First, if people don't feel like breath work is for them, you have other modalities and ways that you help people when they're kind of like, I have an ailment, I have this that I haven't been able to get through. But also, I have done with you energy kinesiology. And so I'd love for you just touch on it briefly and just share with people how you work with them in different ways.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Robina. So I basically do the two things: the breath work that we've been talking about, which again, it basically comes back to, empowering you, right? And with the energy kinesiology, oh my gosh, with the energy kinesiology, it's the same thing. It's about empowering you. The difference is the energy kinesiology, I work with people one-on-one, and it wouldn't matter what you came in with. If you walked in and you had back pain, or if you walked in and you'd had a big loss in your life that you couldn't get over, or if you had neck pain or digestive issues or asthma, I don't care what it is. Whatever you're walking in there with, we are going to, like with the breath work, I said it's sort of broad. You can't just order up exactly what you want to work on that day. But with the energy kinesiology, it's a very laser focused attention on that one issue. And the goal is always to look at, like, how do we get to the core or the root of that issue? And the question is, well, and how do you do that? It's a really good question. I'm always looking, as I say, whatever issue you come in with, I'm always looking and asking the body the same 4 questions. Number 1, let's just call it back pain, or digestion. Let's call it digestion and back pain, because often it will be the 2, right? Okay. Digestion and back pain. I'll say, hey, body, hey, I'm talking to your body. I'm muscle testing and directly having a conversation with your body and saying, hey, do you want to be corrected and brought back to balance using physicals, doing something physical? Are you looking for something biochemical or nutritional, or does your body want something emotional to be cleared, or does your body want something energetic to be cleared? And so we're looking at the body very much as holistically, but also like we are multidimensional. So I'm asking, wherein does the problem lie? So, it seems obvious if somebody has back pain, it's like, well, obviously it's a physical problem. But quite often people have been here and they've been there and they still have their physical problem that they've had, and they go to the chiropractor, and the chiropractor is wonderful and the chiropractor is good. It just didn't get to the root of the problem. or it's like it helps, but it still keeps coming back. And so with that example, just as an example, often the back pain, as an example, it's physical in feeling, but the issue lies in maybe something else, some energy, some emotion, or something like that. And we just go right to that point and clear it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that it's again, I don't know the answer. Your body knows the answer.
And
I'm
that's what I
really
love
good at
about it.
asking the questions. Yes.
And sorry to interrupt, but that's what I loved about the experience with you, because I came to you with a very specific pain, right? I had a pain in my lower, like in my left hip area, that I'd had for probably a good decade, if not longer. And by the way, I haven't had any issues with it since. And what came up of what was wanting to heal, I would have never arrived at that place if I was sitting in a chair talking to somebody, or, trying to talk out what I thought it was. I never would have arrived at that place to have that healing. And that's the piece that I love about it, because my brain thinks it knows everything all the time.
Yes.
And it doesn't. And I loved that I could just lay there and allow my body to speak for me. And I think to give myself the gift of, like, I want my body to tell you what's really going on. And because the body's just waiting to be heard, right?
Right. Well, and then, and Robina, taking that experience is that if you'd had that pain for about 10 years, if your mind could have figured it out, it would have figured it out. Again, so your mind is really, really good at so many things, but there's certain things it just is not so good at. Right. So we're not knocking the mind. In fact, we're honoring the mind, but it's just like, sometimes ask the body. It knows. It will tell you. It's like, no, work on this because that's related to the hip. And I don't remember exactly, but very, very often they seem polar. They seem like very far away. The issue that's related to whatever the physical problem is, but then it resolves because that's what the body's been holding.
Yeah. It was powerful. I personally feel like, I think yoga and all of that is wonderful. I feel like this is something that companies should introduce. I mean, imagine the shift in their workforce if people started doing more breath work and energy and looking at healing their body.
That would be amazing. That would be so amazing.
Like the productivity.
Yeah. And there's so many different things. There's so many different pathways, right? But whether it's yoga, whether it's talk therapy, whatever it may be, they're all wonderful pathways to us feeling whole, feeling better, feeling integrated, feeling less anxious, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, what tools can we, what tools can we put in our own toolbox to help us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I love. I kind of, I don't want to say collected over time, but experience different things. And we evolve, we change, we heal, we grow. And so what may be working for at one time may be different, right? And so for me personally, I love having the opportunity to show up and just breathe and kind of give my mind a rest. And I'm sure my family does too, because I come out of it much calmer. And then, like you said, like I shared, I took my dog, I take Snowball in with me, and she comes out a total like marshmallow afterwards. Like,
I actually want to do, I just do a newsletter once a month, but one of the newsletters at some point I have to do on animals, because the thing is, I've got quite a lot of pictures of animals on their people, but they're sort of fuzzy because but it would be so fun because the animals, they definitely benefit, they definitely benefit.
Well, and then I think even just being in the energy of their human too, right? As
in
we
a calm place.
It's a wonderful experience, and why I wanted to share this with everybody, Saci. So I'm really grateful that you said yes to this, because I wouldn't have known that it existed if someone hadn't shared it with me. And it has transformed my life and what I've been doing and creating. And it's one of those places where I really, truly do feel safe, right? Like it's it's that place where I allow me to see me. So if that makes sense. And there are times in breath work where like my face will pop up in front of me and I'll be like, whoa, like, whoa, where'd you come from? But it is a place I feel like where I just, even that respite from the world and everything that I feel like I need to be doing, accomplishing, all of that, it's just for me and it's a gift. So to be able to introduce other people to it is, I just, it's one of those things I could not do.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So, well, as we wind down, there's a few things. First, to anyone who's listening, thank you for joining us. Obviously, thank you to Saci for being here and sharing. I know that we could talk about this in probably all day. Like there's so much that I love about this topic and experiencing. I'm going to put up here for people, Saci, just to show them this is your website on how they can reach you. And if you enjoyed any of this conversation, you want to find out more, go and visit Saci, SaciMcDonald.com, follow her. You can reach out to me and ask questions. But before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to share with people, when can they work with you? How might they be able to come hang out with me in breath work? And whatever it is that you want to share with them, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Robina. And thank you so much for having me and being for such a wonderful proponent for the breath work. Because again, it's such a personal practice, and it's, I know it's so much, it's your personal practice, and it's everybody's personal practice that makes it so powerful. And so the breath work right now, and of course it's always subject to change, but on Wednesdays at 4:00, there's a breathwork circle. And then on Sundays, the first and third Sundays of the month are at 5 p.m. California time. And then all the other Sundays, because sometimes there's 5 Sundays in a month, they're at 10 a.m. And that allows for the Europeans to come into the circle. And that's one place that you can find. And there's an introductory offer of $27. So if you go in there, if you put in first time, it's $27 for the first time. And if you are here today and you let me know, the second one, I'll have it be free. So come to one and pay $27, and the second one will be free.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you. And so to anybody, by the way, if you want to do breath work with people all over the world, how often do you get an opportunity to do that? Right. So I love it because I always in my back of my head, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Right. Yeah. To be able to welcome everyone. Yeah. But I hope to see you there to breathe with you at breathwork if you're curious about it. Thank you, Saci, for extending that to people who are listening. If you show up for the first one, which by the way, $27, to spend an hour healing your body. Like, where can you go to get that?
You are going to be adding. I'm just going to invite you. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to invite you to add value to your own life. You're adding value to your own life. Yeah. Yeah. Truth. I will hold space while you add value to your life. Right.
Right. Truth there. Well, thank you very much, Saci. Thank you to everyone.
Robina. That was fun. And whoever's here, I don't know who's here. It doesn't really, but it just feels like it's me and Robina hanging out together, which is always really fun. So
yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, are we up? What time is up?
We are there. So everybody, like I said, if you want to follow Saci, you can follow her at SaciMcDonald.com. If you want to learn more about me and what I do, you can find out at RobinaBennion.com. And of course, reach out to either Saci or I for information. And may you, through this, start to rediscover what your own normal is in this world, redefine it, and allow your light to shine through in all that you create and all that you do. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to my guest. Until we meet again.
Thank you, Robina. Thank you.